Admiral. Admiral. Admiral.
Germ, thanks for being the advanced member of the landing party on the planet. Hello to you, sirs and madams. It's your buddy Admiral Teag. We have an amazing episode of Star Trek TOS. It's good to see everybody, and it's good to see you out there as people start stumbling in. And we have an awesome video package for you to keep us on track tonight. We have an awesome episode of Star Trek to talk about. And I got to say, this was one of the more enjoyable ones to watch. And it was fun. And I was glad that I had a chance to watch a second time before uploading it. The real question tonight is going to be for you guys, like, why do you think they passed on this as a pilot? My personal feeling is it's a little slow. It's a little too much like The Cage. But Gene Roddenberry had clearly gotten the message. It's tighter. It's faster. There is a longer cut of it with like 2 or 3 more minutes, maybe 4. That would have been too much. Now it's almost as long as The Cage. And you're talking about something where we're doing another slow, not action-y sort of story. So they saw this and they were just like, all right, you did most of what we wanted. We still think it's a little bloated. And he's like, I'm here to work with you. Unlike a modern writer, they trim it down, they get it to a manageable length, and they get this episode out and they make a decision. This can't be the pilot. But after seeing it, the network says, make a season. It takes 10 months. I mess up the date. They don't go back to make the next one until July. It is 10 months between production, and there's a 10-month production break, and you'll see some interesting differences here. But let's say hello to the Saving Star Trek crew. With me today, I've got JT, Resolute Germ, and Sean. Gentlemen, sirs, Sean appears to be coughing up a lung, so let's start with JT.
No, I'm good. I'm muted. I'm good.
We already threw it to JT.
Hello, Admiral, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
And
how are things in Detroit?
We once again have the sweet air of freedom instead of the collective smoke from the north. So I can't complain.
Honestly, yeah, those pictures you showed us when the wildfires were raging, I don't know if you got as bad as we got in New York for the last set of forest fires, where it was 1,200 or 1,400 parts per million or something like that of particulate matter in the air, and it actually burned your eyes right away. But it was pretty bad.
Yes.
It was worse than it was here. That's always weird. Just like the air quality warning turns purple.
Oh,
it's like,
when it's like
go outside.
When it's like Shanghai, Beijing, Mexico City, and Delhi, India are all like 3 times cleaner than you, you've got a problem.
It can sometimes lead to certain complications. What can I tell you? You know what? Next we have Resolute Germ. Germ, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing okay if my computer wants to cooperate.
You want to tell us what the hell is going on with the Mariners uniforms before we get going? They look like a softball team. Black pants. What next, Germ? Plaid?
Hey, those are lucky uniforms. They have a 75% winning percentage with those uniforms.
That means nothing. The Jets have like a 75%. Have never won a game with their Peter Griffin uniforms, where they wear the green pants and the white shirt. And I would just point out that they have never won a game in any of their other uniforms either. So there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. Sean, sir, how are you?
My God, they've gone to plaid.
Sean, did you notice that he quickly tried to divert away from the fact that those numbers are still way better than the Mets?
Well,
way better.
I do have love for the Mets as a person from Queens, but yeah, the Mets are a disaster. They would be in like second to last place. Was it the Diamondbacks? 35 games out, but okay. We digress. Sean, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Good. Just saying hi to people in the chat.
Yeah,
and it's good to be here.
All of you out there.
Yeah, we got quite a few people jumping in. Now, I must admit, I didn't watch the episode today, but I've seen it so many times. I think I'll be okay.
I'd forgotten how good this one was and how outlier different. And there he is, your pal, Mr. Matt. Just felt like showing him off for a second. I had forgotten how outlier good this episode was, but it is different. This episode has a case of TMP identity crisis to a degree, but you know what? Let's let the record speak for itself. I made a log entry about this episode, which will keep us on point, and I think you will all enjoy. So, you know what? Let's throw this to you now, and then on the other side of this, we'll say hello to everybody. Please enjoy.
Incoming transmission.
Captain Starlog, Stardate 0801.26, Admiral Teag reporting. I have completed screening the second pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before. This episode sold the network on the series, but it ends up being broadcast third, and the crew has their turn back the clock uniforms on, dressed like the crew from The Cage. The network executives in a February 1966 meeting saw Kirk and Gary Mitchell throwing hands on a barren rock called Delta Vega, and that sold the entire series. Action, stakes, blood, enough for the network to sink their teeth into and greenlight a season. Yet the same people who ordered it, the network and producers alike, turned around and buried it as episode 3. Too much talking? Too much setup? Too cerebral? We'll figure that one out together tonight. What the network wanted was a monster that drinks salt and scares the kids on night 1. So the Man Trap got the premiere slot. Roddenberry himself later admitted that Where No Man Has Gone Before still carried too much pure science fiction, just like the first pilot that was rejected. The fight scene is what saved us. Everything else that comes after that is because the network was impressed that they could have action and adventure on the final frontier. The sequence of events was as follows. Where No Man Has Gone Before wrapped July 29th, 1965. Post-production finished in January of 1966. The finished pilot was delivered to NBC around mid-February of 1966. NBC ordered the series, so I want to welcome
Admiral
everyone who managed to come
Teag,
by.
incoming super chat.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's jump into the chat and see how you guys are doing out there. We've got like a Star Trek mosh pit going on. It's pretty rock and roll. All right. Hey, Sigvaldsson, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Pop culture is dead. At least this was when pop culture was thriving. This episode was okay, but not really memorable. You know what? I'm going to give it to you on that one. Honestly, you're not far from where I went with this. I did enjoy this episode. I didn't think it had any real problems with it, but if it'd been longer like they had planned, like I don't have a huge interest in seeing the longer episode. I feel like we would just be getting more expository dialogue on the transporter, more expository dialogue on like their communicators. It's whatever it might be. Like it's a communicator. It can communicate into orbit, unless of course the ship was beyond the horizon. Like who knows what they cut. The stuff that they cut from the menagerie to make the stuff they cut from the cage to make the menagerie was very atmospheric. This episode still has a decent amount of atmospheric stuff going on, but it doesn't have atmospheric smoke in space, which is one thing I appreciate. Let's set the record straight. We are reviewing the special edition. They are now considered canonical, and we will comment about the original effects versus these effects and whether we think it improved or hurt them. But obviously, we all feel here that they did them justice. I would simply point out that in the special edition, the CGI has been updated to make the Enterprise stay consistent, whereas suddenly it had nipples that could cut glass. Out of nowhere, this on the original series was Pike's sort of nacelles with the spikes pointing forward, or the antenna, showing what the hell are those things?
I have no idea, but they do come in a lot of the model kits. So
they look so 50s. They look so last generation of sci-fi.
Yeah,
losing them was genius. Like, do you think someone just took some nail clippers and was like, I don't like these? Snap, snap. You know.
Well, they put the rotating things in there, and I think Roddenberry wanted that because you notice they turn inward opposite each other like airplane propellers, just like the planes he flew. And that's
right, because in a fighter plane with one engine, this is weird, just tangential, but on point. The reason they're spinning towards each other is to cancel out the drag.
Yep.
The reason why all aircraft carriers that the U.S. built had the conning tower on the same side, save one, was after they figured that out. They built it so that if the plane was pulled away, it would be pulled off the ship instead of into the conning tower. I believe ours rotated counterclockwise from the pilot's perspective. So Gene flew twin-engine bombers, right? And twin-engine planes later. So those had two propellers that cycled towards each other, so you had zero drag in either direction as long as they were working.
Yeah,
it was torque. You're countering torque, which the fighter problems of the fighter planes of that era had a huge issue during takeoff because they only had one engine and it would torque very hard in one direction to the left or the right at takeoff.
Yeah, hence the conning tower thing on our aircraft carriers. That one aircraft carrier that they built the conning tower on the wrong side, the fighters just kept smacking into it when they upgraded the planes, because I don't know if it was a problem until we had stronger engines. But yeah, the stronger the plane, the more the torque. If it's a single engine, jets eliminate that problem. So we see the oscillating.
The only problem the jets have ever resolved.
All right, so yeah, we've traded the antennas for the rotating, what are the Broussard collectors, are they called?
Yes.
I don't know what they're supposed to be doing, but they look awesome.
Now, Admiral, I will say, there's a whole thing about whether the Cage was a pilot or, Charlie X was kind of feeling still like a pilot. This episode really excites me. Just straight off the bat, I'm going to let people know I really love this episode. But to me, this feels like complete Star Trek, where everything we've watched TOS up to this point is kind of like, we don't really know what Spock is doing. We don't know what the sounds on the ship are going to be like. We don't know if this is a military structure or something else. We don't know how transporters work. Everything really hasn't glued together. This is the first episode in the series where everything just feels like Star Trek and it's all correct. And I don't know if that has to do with it being filmed in a different order than what we see it or not, but this feels very solidly Star Trek, which is exciting. You can really get into this episode.
This one, I would guess the differences you're talking about are they had more time to rehearse, right? They probably ran through a lot of scenes a couple of times. They had more time to edit it. Gene had the most time of any episode to write it, right? Or whatever. I guess he has his whole life to write the Cage. And, gets instruction, and he has a whole year before he comes up with this new working, proof of concept. Like, this one a little tighter, let's not have the extra minutes of exposition. And I guess the network are the ones who are just like, we don't have to explain some of this stuff. It won't be a big idea.
Yeah, Admiral, you're cutting in and out a little bit. You may want to reset your mic.
Yeah, let's
true.
See if
one of the things that I love about this episode is they set red alert and the whole crew responds appropriately. They have Kirk giving orders and Spock giving those orders to the ship. You have that military aspect to it. You have more people as extras on this ship than you do producers on New Trek, which is awesome to see because it feels like a lived-in ship. You have all of the sounds on the ship pretty much correct to what they're going to be for the rest of the series. You have the picture of the 3D chess up here. There's talk about Spock having green blood, him not having emotions and making a reference to one of those human emotions. So the whole lore of Spock here in Vulcans really starts to build out. Sean, I don't know if you noticed any of that in between maybe the awkward turtlenecking on every single one of these uniforms. I think that might be the most distracting thing in this whole episode.
I think these were like leftover uniforms from the Cage, and they just added some turtleneck to it to give it a little different look.
Could be.
It looks like that anyway.
I feel like
just tailored.
Do I sound better now?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay. I think I just had to jump out and jump back in and close a couple of windows. StreamYards is a harsh mistress. Guys, we have a great episode for you. And yeah, I think JT is mostly correct on this one. I would say this: we had time to think about it between the time we made more episodes and this one aired. You'll notice a lot of quick cuts where Spock is starting to smile, and they just get away from him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few moments where we flirt with disaster, but don't go there. The music is on point and there, but there's some stuff about it that we don't ever want to revisit. There's a couple of musical cues that we need to cut out and never go back to. And in the 10 months that they have, like the CBS Orchestra or the NBC Orchestra, whoever the hell made this, I guess Desi Arnaz himself went down there and he's just like, I got a package from home and it's got some magic powder and it's going to make you guys make the most wonderful music. And we have an awesome theme song. And by the time we get to our next episode, pretty much all of our music's in place. But this one, I guess, got scored before the other ones because it is first in production order. They were right not to go with this one first, especially if it was longer. I don't know how much longer they were going for, if they were going to tell them to film more, but this would be the only appearance I can think of by William Shatner without his Star Trek sideburns. But hey, you know what? I'm remiss here. I'm being a bad host. Let me welcome everybody. At least we established conversation and cleared up my audio. And now I'm 5x5, so I can welcome Mark Harkness. My friend Kyle Cullen is here. Hello, Kyle. Sir, good to see you. Gavin is here. It's good to see you, Blackie. The dead man, James, it's the Trek reviewer. Buddy Hepburn, John the Beagle Dad, Dave C., Sean, Lombardi 1969, JT, Mr. House Party 6, and Sig Volleson all here together with us. Guys, sirs, listen, we have a mission to figure out whether or not this pilot was passed on because it was too thinky, too cerebral. They passed on it. We can't restore it. The idea that we would make this, we would be able to go back and change this to the pilot, I don't know. I don't feel it's as though we dodged a phaser beam here. However, just immersing us with the synergistic relationship of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, even though they're not interacting, the network's like, this relationship shapes up very quickly. We should roll these guys out and put them front and center first. They're going to be our stars. They're your stars by episode 6. They're really established as having a pretty cohesive relationship. This next episode we're going to do, Naked Time, after this one, is going to have everybody sort of hit some acting boundaries where they themselves had to get comfortable with what they were doing. And there was a reason they did Naked Now as the third episode of TNG. They're like, the crew and the actors are not loose in their parts, and it's really hurting the show. So with that in mind, they took the lesson from this and they decided that they could pull this off. But this show opens really efficiently with a teaser. Remember those? We have an awesome teaser where they're getting their orders from Admiral Teag. Unfortunately, this part got cut. You've got to watch the special editions from TAS for this one. Jerm, I'm glad you brought this to my attention. Thank you, sir, for letting me know that I was there from the start.
In TAS, they were life support force field belts, but they're nothing in this, unfortunately.
What do you mean? As far as the life,
they're just
like
decorative.
The life belts?
Yeah, they're good. Unfortunately, they never establish them in the regular series.
You know what? Here's the deal. They made the belts in the animated series aesthetically resemble the belts that we're going to wear here. Guys, we still haven't figured out how to strap in space. We have much more traditional gun belts. These are World War II style Earth gun belts that have been spray painted silver. And they are the U.S. style web gear gun belt. So Spock wears his laser gun on that. Hey, it's Kremlin. Spock wears his weird laser gun on that one. In HD, when we really see the prop, it's like it'd be awesome for a steampunk retro futuristic show now, but it is not too cool. It almost looks like a garden hose, and the phaser vacuum cleaner is just not that Gene got as like a gift from a toy company. I was not surprised, and also sort of it answered a lot of questions when I found out that was given to them by a speculative toy maker who wanted a toy contract, hoping to curry favor and that they'd use it in an episode. Gene was just like, I'll throw it in there with the other stuff, but We'll get to the phaser rifle down the line. Yeah, so the episode opens with them getting their orders from Admiral Teag, but of course, that's secret lore of the lore and order here of the Final Frontier. We start with the rebuilt shot of the Enterprise coming right at you. It's our background tonight. It looks great. These are the people from the show Enterprise. They're retained to do the special edition. That's the deal. Whereas Trouble with Tribbles may have been different people cleaning it off and doing the digitization, this is done by the Enterprise people because there's a gap there, right? Trouble with Tribbles is the first one where they're experimenting with how to clean up the original shows so they can put them out on home video. And so they make more Tribbles, and that Trouble with Tribbles is the first one we get cleaned up. So we don't have the same team on that or the same tools. Things have advanced roughly, 8 or 10 years since that, maybe 7. But we have a beautiful Enterprise now. This is 2005, 2006 technology. Now, I don't think they got the new stuff. We just got what Enterprise had in the file. And that's why I'm going to bring up our energy barrier at the end of the universe that we see. Anybody thought it looked familiar?
The ship or the energy barrier?
Well, our ship looks pretty familiar as we get into our actual episode here. We open up with the ship, and then we see Kirk and Spock looking at their monitor that snaps on, and they get this communication from Kelso that there's a distress signal in space. This is a teaser, folks. This is how you would build a show that was so good that we could step away for 2 minutes and sell a Lincoln, okay? And people would be like, I'm going to save for 2 years to buy that car because that show was so good.
All $3,000.
I'm going to wait through this commercial for the news and this thing in French Indochina, whatever that is. We're at war. Wow, who knew that? Like, that's the world that this is being made in. And I got the months wrong. Like I said, this was actually filmed in July. So that is when they started. The special effects and post-production are finished in March. So they knew what they wanted to do. They're just finishing it up with a second infusion of cash from the studio.
Admiral, that view screen real quick, this one here is a TV that you can buy from Samsung with a frame around it that looks like a picture frame. And it's meant to kind of look like a piece of art. This is that. Except this is about 60 years ahead of 50 to 60 years ahead of that. So very cool futurism.
It doesn't have the aspect ratio to get a broadcast back then. It would have had black lines on the side.
Sure. And the fact that this is even 16:9 is even cooler.
I don't know if it's all the way there, but it's more oblong.
It's close.
It's not
close.
Movie screen. It's close. I couldn't really fit Admiral Teag in there, so I know it's not perfect because that's the way. The only way you can shrink it. The aspect ratio stays the same. I'll get better at it, folks. But there we go. We have Kelso telling them, we've got some problems, and we have an Earth ship from about 200 years ago. So
now, if you look,
the time that we're living in.
If you look down at the bottom row there, off onto the table below the chess piece, are those bishops doing something rather un-Catholic-like? They appear rather suggestive. Like maybe they'd want them as a personal massager of some sort.
Who knows? I mean, they might just look a little bit like the Kryptonian escape pods that send you to the Phantom Zone in Man of Steel. I won't comment any further on that. But we find an Earth probe from our time. Now, they're pretty far out, farther than anyone else is out. And we have this Earth ship that's supposedly from right around our time. I don't know if what we're saying is their future had departed from ours already in Star Trek. I do not believe Star Trek's history hitting 1966 was the same as the history of 1966. I don't believe that the World War II in the world of Star Trek was over as quickly as ours. I do not believe that the Cold War was managed the way that we managed it. In fact, we know it wasn't. The Bell Riots and all that stuff is later canon. In Gene Roddenberry's 1967, even when we go back in time, like 1966 and 67 are the same, but it looks to be like they only just got there. Like, they had a much more brutal World War II. And when Spock quotes the numbers, they're like preposterously high for World War II. What does he say? Like 700 million dead in one episode? It's a season 3 episode, but it's a preposterous number.
I never really paid close attention to that number, but when you get to episodes like Gary 7, it's blatantly obvious that the Apollo program was from 1968 on forward. And some of these episodes were definitely before the Apollo program. So when they're using footage, you don't get NASA's best. You get like their warm-up programs, right? You're doing like Mercury and Gemini and some of these other rockets that it's interesting to see what they think of the future because we hadn't been to the moon yet. And
let's
now
talk about the moon
someone
for
like
a moment and what the moon means to us now.
Sir, we land on the moon to go to Mars, and that's what we're doing with the moon. Sir.
Okay. So, you're thinking of
and it's interesting because I'm young enough where this show, then the moon, then even really the space shuttle, because I was around the year of the Challenger disaster, right? So for me, we've always been to the moon. I like Apollo has always been a thing, and so it's very interesting. I'll say that thought provoking to think that this is before any of that, and I don't view it through that kind of a lens. And I don't really know how far you need to go into something like that, but I will say that it is definitely more forward thinking if you were around to watch this before the Apollo program, if that makes any sense. Like everything Gene's doing is far more futuristic than someone like me who already has all the answers in the answer column, right?
Okay.
So when you look at it this way, you think, oh, that's even cooler because they didn't have any of this yet. It was all still a theory.
Perspective. By the way, I did look this up. They were looking at Lost in Space with an example of how they didn't want to do it. Although looking at some pictures and stuff, Lost in Space was on par or equal to Star Trek in their production values. But their production approach, they watched a lot of Lost in Space between this episode and the next one they make. They're just like, oh, no way. We're never going to do any of the, like, and I think their uniforms are one of the things that they're like, this is a little too Space Family Robinson. We don't want to invoke it at all. We're doing a moral space story, is what Gene said. Not a moralizing space story and not an instructional, like, way to live your life, but a space story about like how morals would be tested in space and if people would indeed remain moral. Now, I would say in Star Trek, in New Trek, that question has largely been answered by the fact that people are deeply immoral in New Trek and they have just failed that completely. And by the way, if you want to, pass that test completely, hit the like and follow buttons. It is the logical thing to do. We want to try to get the 30 likes so we can get the bandwidth expanded to maximum for everybody. And I want to thank everyone for being on board for our show. So here it is. It's the escape pod from the Valiant.
The black
I almost
box.
called it the Valiant. Yes, this would be their black box. It's all beat up, and I would say this looks pretty good considering it was in a ship that was destroyed and then ejected into space. I guess it was more important for it to be recognizable that they had to be in such good shape because Kirk is like, it's a disaster. Look what a mess it is. I suppose that the medals of the 1966 of their time. Well, am I right here? Is this supposed to be from like about 1966? Or how far are they? Have they worked that out yet? So this ship shouldn't be, this probe and this black box should not have been out there 200 years ago because they were too far in the future. They hadn't made up their minds yet. Because they're 235 years ahead of 1966 or something like that?
Did they ever say?
They start giving stargates that line up with the actual year in Wrath Khan. 2281 or 2282, something like that.
The Valiant was around in 2267 on our calendar.
Is that from B canon stuff?
References to A Taste of Armageddon and In a Mirror Darkly Part 2.
There would be a new Valiant. There have been like 3 different runs of the car called the Valiant. You know, come on, there'd be a new Valiant by now. There's been several Enterprises. They hadn't decided how far into the future they were when they made this episode, so there's a couple of lines here that are just incongruous, but they find this black box. Jerem, what did you think of the prop? What did you think of the story so far, the way we rolled out this teaser? Because right after this, we're gonna declare red alert and go to commercial. Jerem, your story thoughts?
Well, it's a very good prop, and as far as the timeline goes, it would be about 2066 and not 1966 for the ship to have gone into the outer galaxy and been destroyed. So there's no.
So it's from like 20 years after Archer. It's from like 8 to 10 years after. It's from the time of Star Trek United.
It's from probably 10 years after First Contact.
All right, thank you. Thank you. It's good to have a Final Frontier calendar expert. It takes a team. It takes an entire bridge crew to run a Star Trek show. But speaking of a bridge crew, we have a hallway with a sliding door that's not a turbo lift. We never have the camera like the turbo lift like this in the turbo lift again. But we walk onto our bridge, and this is a much more grounded replacement for coming in through the roof onto Pike. Even though that was really like amazing, I think their judgment was, as cool as that was, it only sort of worked. And in this show, we're going to be pushing a lot of things as far as they can go. One
Admiral.
day, maybe we'll try it, but not in the first episode. Go ahead.
There is a source from Enterprise in A Mirror Darkly Part 2 where it says this is the SS Valiant from the mid-21st century, so 2065.
Ah, thank you.
So there you have
And
it.
hello to the Tetrarch of Apathy I see in the chat. It's good to see you. Welcome. And Mr. House Party 6, sir. It's good to see you. Evil Clippy. Evil Clippy joins us. And Dave C is here. Hey, Dave. Sir, hello.
So it was
The
only
casual
2 years
turtleneck.
after Zephram Cochrane's.
Around the time of Friendship 1.
Yeah,
I guess
If you
the
remember
Vulcans
that
were willing to help
Voyager.
Dakota's. I guess the Vulcans were willing to let them co-design a probe. They're like, we will help you with certain miniaturization that you would discover within the next 5 years, and you can probe you can make a map for when you leave in 75 years. That tracks with everything from Enterprise and
Does
Picard's dream, where he remembers. Well, here's the thing: Picard's dream that they call Star Trek First Contact, which is simply a dream that happens in the Nexus. Picard's dream is pretty close to what happens, except that Picard plays no part in it, in my opinion. So the First Contact thing, it tracks with the way the Vulcans are acting in Enterprise, that they would help us build a probe to make a map, because we might
but there's
have
people
the probe
on it,
be
though.
destroyed.
There's
That's
people
true.
on the
It's not a
Valiant.
probe, it's a ship. Yeah, you're right. These people may have been in cryosleep and woken up after they got really far out there. It could have had an experimental event horizon engine. All we know is the thing got screwed up, and it was a crazy mission. They were going to the energy barrier at the end of the universe. Folks, in Star Trek, we live inside a crazy donut of chaos. At the middle of our galaxy, at the hole of the donut, there's an energy barrier. That's the one Cybok goes through in Star Trek V, and I think we go through it
A donut with a cream filling.
but we also go through it with douchebag Sargon and all those dudes from By Any Other Name. So there's an energy barrier at the end of the universe, and there's an energy barrier at the center of the universe. We eventually learn how to get through them, but for the most part, it contains our world enough, and it's kind of a smart idea to just be like, all right, look, there has to be some limit to where things happen. And then the mirror universe was, about as much more as they wanted to do. They wanted to be able to have some control over stuff so that there was still some mystery. In the Doomsday Machine, that thing's come through the barrier because it's from another galaxy. And that's one of the reasons they're so freaked out by it. When Decker is telling Kirk about it, before he talks about when he talks about the pure antiproton, he's pretty messed up by that. But when Spock retroactively, forensically, de-genocides the path of the Doomsday Machine, he's like, we've tracked the destroyed systems. That's like, it's come from another galaxy. Kirk kind of looks at him. This episode establishes it. But we have a quick conversation in the turbo shaft or the turbo lift. We have a quick conversation in the turbo lift. Gary Mitchell's, he's all right. He'll go on to be in another. He'll be a cursed spaceman again in 2001: A Space Odyssey. We have great casting in this episode, but I love the way they show us the inside of their bridge. We walk on with the captain. This is so much more of a we're with the captain, he's our leader sort of a show. To have the camera follow him like this was an absolutely fantastic idea, and it builds on Kirk's authority. He's also kind of a breezy commander, and he's breezy with Mitchell and with Spock. He's trying to get Spock to show a little more emotion, and we have a pretty hot chick who's like yeoman number 1. We didn't have Janice yet, so Yeoman 1 is pretty hot, but I guess she's dating Mitchell because they're going to be holding hands in a little while, which, I don't think I would be as tolerant as Kirk was of that, but we call the department heads to the bridge. And by the way, after we step away and declare red alert,
turn.
Right, I should be clear about something. We break away from 3D chess. We find the parts of the Valiant, and we decide that we have to go and investigate the ship that was destroyed going into the energy barrier. After we find this object, we go to red alert and head towards the energy barrier. That's when we have our opening sequence and our opening narration. That's notable to put that in there. The opening narration comes there. So coming back, that's our opening teaser, was pretty good. We come back, we're in the turbo lift, and we have our conversation. And there's a nice combination of we do this every day, and this is totally different and wonderful, and there's a sense of wonderment to it. But at the same time, this does look like a workplace that makes sense. Guys, our new bridge, it's been fixed up a little bit. It looks a little different. And let's talk about the bridge and and the way we're running this bridge under Kirk, as opposed
I
to
thought it was very odd
Mike.
the way they had that other officer come out first, the other blonde. They just had her kind of stand there awkwardly and not say anything, and you could kind of see it on her face that she's just standing there not doing anything next to Kirk, maybe off screen in this shot. But I think it's funny that Mitchell looks past her and talks to Janice, even though the first one was the better looking one.
What you mean to Elizabeth? You mean he talks to Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Right, because Janice is Yeoman Rand. Yeoman Rand won't be here. Yeoman Rand will be installed on Tuesday. We'll have her for our next story.
Is that Sulu back there, by the way?
Yeah, he's in there.
That is Sulu, and he gets a huge demotion after this because Gary Mitchell, I guess, is the best navigator in the fleet. Jerm, you want to talk about Sulu's role in this one?
It is actually canonically a promotion. He goes from life sciences to command.
Okay. I thought he was full-on science officer.
Because he gets the gold uniform.
Still under Spock. Sorry, Sean, go ahead and repeat that.
No, it is because he gets the gold uniform.
Right, it is technically a promotion. Good catch, Jerm. I was trying to figure that one out. I figured that the science officer job was Sulu's, but this is a specific kind of sciences. And after this, they move Sulu to a sciencey but not science officer thing where he's kind of got a botany hobby and he does the botany surveys for the ship.
He works in the botany bay.
He does have a botany bay, and it's got that weird plant that we saw last week that Charlie is going to have some fun with. All right. I don't like the gooseneck monitor that Kirk has. We got rid of almost all of them. I don't know why that one's still there. I don't know why Robert Justman felt it was important. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The gooseneck 50s thing it's not working. They saw, again, I think Germ has pointed out that they bring these back for TAS. I don't know that TAS was supposed to be canonically, I know it was supposed to be canonical, but only certain episodes were sanctioned as canon by Gene himself. So I also think that with the animated series, he was willing to be more fun, differentiate it, and let them do stuff like have a weird alien for Chekhov's position on the ship and things of that nature. I don't know. I think this gooseneck thing sucks, and it makes it look very Lost in Space and very previous era of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Although what's the argument for it? It looks like it could be reasonably functionable.
I'm looking in like control rooms for the Gemini and Apollo programs and things like that, and I don't see those at any of the stations. So I think you may be onto it that it was taken from previous science fiction.
It looks like Forbidden Planet gear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sean, what do
Yeah.
you think? Do you have a take?
Totally. It's from a bygone era, and I know that they wanted to move on. They wanted things to look functional, and that just looks like, hey, let's make it look spacey. It doesn't do anything. And I mean, maybe they did it because they think, okay, we need some curves because everything in the shot is straight lines and hard angles. Maybe they're like, well, we need something that has to have a curve in it, and it didn't work. Could have been that.
You might be right about that, although I guess we are able to satisfy that if they're like, we need to fill some sort of golden quotient with some cooler shots from a little bit above later on in the series where we're looking down from view screen perspective at our crew and other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have an Uhura, by the way, guys, but there's Sulu. He's in charge of life sciences. All stations are ready, and we have the ship psychiatrist on the far left, Dr. Dehner. Dr. Dehner is an early take on the Ilea Deanna type of person. And one of the things we'll find out later we'll talk about it when we get there, is she has an extraordinarily high ESP sensitivity index. I am so glad that they threw this ability to aliens instead of having humans with ESP just walking around. Then it would have been a little too magic, right? It's like, how come people just don't do that all the time then? It would have been too disconnected. Like, the fact that they had to be changed to have this happen to them was probably a story saver. But Germ, do you want to square up the continuity between TAS and this, where they bring back the gooseneck gear almost everywhere? It's like most stations.
It's not everywhere. They don't really feature it on the bridge. They had it in, I believe their version of the holodeck, but it wasn't really prominently featured.
Was that called the recreation room?
Yeah, probably the recreation room.
It was the recreation room, but they pronounced it the recreation room.
That was that.
There is a difference on that.
I think it's a Rajan.
Yeah. It's spelled the same, but the difference is huge, right? All right. So
did you notice there's also one other thing that they take off? There is a plaque on there with like letters and numbers above that microphone. They take that off too in future episodes. I was trying to figure out what that was there for. Is it a plaque
with his name and serial number or something? Or is it
it's
ship's
like
number?
8HB2 or something. You'd have to really zoom in to figure it out, but it definitely is just like a random number and letter thing, at least to my eye.
Well, we know this from this episode. And hello, buddy.
Maybe it was an eye test.
He's not afraid of the number 13, though.
3C42. Are you at your post?
We've got a broken comm down there, sir. All right, so we have some things that are just not going to carry forward. However, if the colorized version of the cage is correct, we have our bridge painted with brighter colors right away and looking much more alive. Now, I don't think they've done too much special editioning here. I do think that they had like blank workstations and certain screens that were turned off. And I do think they had enough to pull off this view. I think this is pretty much what we saw on TV, just cleaned up digitally. And we're going to get our bridge aesthetic together.
Admiral, found the answer.
Sir.
3C42 was a plaque that they put on there because they lowered that gooseneck viewer. And when they lowered it on the chair, they had a hole in the chair. So they just stuck that over the
I had a
top
funny
of
feeling
it.
once you said they moved the gooseneck thing. Because, when Pike is using it, it's like right in his face.
Yes.
This thing almost looks like it's, you know what? One of the reasons they probably wanted it there is because it looks so naval. It's reminiscent of those weird things where it's like it, in World War II and World War I movies, especially the naval ones, they had those weird things. And in Titanic, they have one too. They have that tube they pull out and they yell into it, and the guy in the engine room can sort of hear, and he's like, "Okay, sir." It looks like one of those. It looks like a good old-fashioned early 20th century shouting tube, like we have in old-fashioned ships. But it doesn't look right. It looks out of place, and it's distracting. So we were glad to see that one move on.
No.
I don't know. I didn't like this prop.
But what is cool is that they have all the department heads there, so it's a way of Kirk doing the ready room thing without being in the ready room. And he just has them all standing there, so he could just ask them a question right there in real time.
We will conference later, I think, but it'll be a smaller conference and a little less formal than the one we have in some other episodes. Here's the energy barrier. It looks a lot like the Delphic Expanse. Oh my gosh. Could this be where those interdimensional beings are from? Is this where the people who
No,
are
we
building
sent
the
them
Expanse
back.
are from?
We sent them back.
But we could have sent them back here. I mean, I don't know, right? It looks pretty much the same.
All the orbs were destroyed, and all of that space was removed, and it was like we built a big, beautiful wall from their dimension.
Right, but this is like we're going over our big, beautiful wall. Like, you know what I mean? This is our
Well, sir, I wouldn't recommend that. I would
be a
not
bad
recommend
idea.
that, sir.
You know what? Here's the energy barrier at the edge of the galaxy as it looks now. It wasn't this cool, or this enhanced my enjoyment of it. I'm going to say right now, I do enjoy the special editions. The original energy barrier, I don't really remember what they did for that one, and quite honestly, I'm satisfied with these effects. I know that it's doing a lot of people an injustice, and it'll make a lot of people angry, but I think that one of the reasons that they did it was that they did this well with people who've done Star Trek special effects before. They didn't want to lose people. And I would say, if anything has kept Star Trek alive, it's been the ability, the rewatchability, and they have not served. And this has been the fault probably of Kurtzman and other people. They have not served Deep Space Nine very well. I certainly hope when we get there in 17 years that they have remastered that, because it looks like a cloudy fish tank now. The original series looks much better than certain episodes of TNG and most of Deep Space Nine. It's crazy.
Well, one of the things you could even see in the very opening scene was, yeah, this was the 1960s, but it was miraculous technology for back then, and the ship looked like a real ship. There was some physicality to it because it was a 3D physical model. Everything that you could say it looks kind of silly and high def in the remaster version, right? It has limitations on it. Let's just say that. It still looks more realistic, lived in, and viable than anything 2009 and later that they call Star Trek.
It looks lived in and functional, and not in this episode, but in a lot of others, when we see the screen turn off, they kind of go out of their way to let you know it's metal. They want you to know. Are there windows in the Enterprise? There are some portholes or whatever you want to call them, and they're in parts of the ship where you can afford to have them and seal that section off. The bridge is the most sensitive part of the ship, so it makes sense that you wouldn't want any structural weakness in there, and that's something that Alex Kurtzman just rebels against. Like, I just think he doesn't understand how televisions work or something. It's like, how do they see if it's not glass? Like I don't like, honey, turn on the magic window. You mean the television, Alex? Okay. I have a funny feeling the wife makes most of the calls in the Kurtzman household, but the energy barrier looks pretty good. Sean, you want to comment, as a person who put 60 hours into melting down the Reliant?
Oh, thanks for reminding me.
Sorry. Would you like to tell me a little bit about like the original model makers, just give them their props and their due, and talk about how, as someone who does the same thing, you can justify these special editions? What's your thought on the way they've upgraded? For the most part, a triumph, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but it's a good time to reiterate it. I'm okay with the remastering because they're doing what that group of people would have done had they had the budget to do it. They did their best to make it look as if it was possible to do in that time. Like this special effect we're looking at here, this is not beyond what they could have done in 1967. Look at what we saw in '69 with 2001. This was possible.
would have
They
been
just
so
didn't have the
expensive.
budget. Yeah. So I think it does pay homage to them. It does. It's not trying to outdo them. They're doing what
These
they would have
people
done.
had done more Star Trek when they made the special edition upgrades than the Star Trek people who made original Star Trek. They had done 98
Yeah.
episodes, and these people did 78, 79.
Yeah.
What does Fry say? 79 episodes, about 30 good ones.
Yeah, but I think it's totally a matter of preference. It's nice that the original cuts are available. They didn't replace. This is an alternative way to watch it, and I think it satisfies everyone. They're not shitting on anybody by doing this. Now, if they just totally took away the originals and made them unavailable to view, I would have a problem with that. But we don't have that.
The originals fairly easily, and we've preserved the most important part, like with the phaser fires and firing and stuff like that. We've cleaned it up. We've preserved the original sound effects. We've preserved the original aesthetic. We haven't tried to change the fundamental episode. And if anyone's noticed on Paramount Plus, it's still not there yet, but they undestructed William Shatner's narration. That should be that needs to be stated. It's great to hear it. So here we are. We're going towards the great edge of the galaxy, and this will be used again as the auxiliary control room monitor and the monitor of the Constellation's auxiliary control room. This is not our monitor. We're going to flip this thing over and use it for the monitor in the auxiliary control room in the conference room.
Admiral,
yes.
You know what it's not? It's not a window. It's not a window. You can't just get a little crack in it and then have a crewman fly up into the crack in the window and then have all of his intestines get blown out his ass through the crack in the window. Fuck you, Alex Kurtzman. Fuck you.
You're crossing the stream, sir, but you know what? You earned your right to complain. And
Admiral Teag,
wow,
incoming super
I
chat.
want to thank my good friend Radioactive as I toggle around. And yes, there we go. Radioactive with 5 Greenlandian greenback says, for your information, in the Next Generation novels, the energy barrier was put in place by the Q, as I recall. Oh wow. I wonder what their logic was behind that. Also, as you saw the banner a moment ago, try to get us 30 likes. We would love to get there. That really increases the bandwidth. All right. So we've talked about the model making a little bit. We've talked about the special edition. I think we all agree this special edition was done real well. This is the opposite of what happened with Star Wars. So say we all.
Oh yeah, so say we all.
Definitely.
If this was baseball, this would be the equivalent of trading for a former Rookie of the Year. It's like, we've got a team to do the special edition. They're good Star Trek men, sir. Yeah, he's a good Star Trek man. He's done 98 episodes of Enterprise. So the energy barrier at the edge of the universe does look cool. It looks a lot like the Delta Vega Expanse when we really get into it.
Well, it's the edge of the. Just to be clear, it's the edge of the galaxy, not the universe.
Sorry, it's the edge of the galaxy. Thank you, Sean. You're correct. The
Nagilum
galaxy
takes him to the edge of the universe. Yeah.
You might be right about that. Nagilum is the ultimate culmination of Gene Roddenberry Monsters of the Week. But I want to thank Radioactive Actual. Thank you so much. And this continuation is brought to you by Radioactive Actual. We're going to give you Gary Mitchell's health update on thanks to Radioactive Actual. We'll be McCoy is not present, but his codgerly old mentor, is it Dr. Piper or Dr. Booth? Roy Booth? Is that it? Dr. Roy Booth?
Wait, who's that?
He calls him Roy later. Who's our chief surgeon on this ship? Dr. Booth, right? Dr. Roy Booth?
I thought it was Dr. John Booth.
JW?
It should be John. It should be John Wilkes Booth, but it's Roy. I think it's Roy Booth. And I don't know.
Mark Harkness says Mark Piper.
Mark Piper. Thank you. All right. Yeah, because he calls him by his first name. I think the R and the Roy is stuck in my head because of the erroneous tombstone, which Roddenberry himself called Mitchell was still fallible. He just had godlike powers. My thought on that one was they were going to call him James Roy Kirk, and that's why they recycled that name into the Nomad thing. But we can't be sure of that. But After the ship hits the energy barrier, they turn back, and they're limping back towards the nearest starbase. They're absolutely semi-destroyed, and there's a great term for you, absolutely semi-destroyed. Their engines are messed up. They don't use the most precise Star Trek terms. They do not say they've had warp core problems. They do not say the lithium crystals are messed up. They don't say they can't get the warp bubble to work out. Their space warp factor engines are broken. Something to that nature. It's a lot simpler. And that voiceover goes on, and Kirk speaks to Spock a little bit, and then we go over and check on Gary last. So I thought the captain showing his priorities. He had looked over at Mitchell. I guess the doctor is working on other people. And then, we get this moment where he opens his eyes, and it's the same effect that I like to go for. It's not that I wear progressive glasses and I have to tilt my head way back to read the screen and everything's a blur except for the bottom part of the glasses when I'm this close in. It's that I want to be like Gary Mitchell and be really arrogant and hold my head back, because that's what he did to deal with these early contact lenses. What they did was they put two glass contact lenses together and put metal tinsel and sparkles in between. I would have been like, F you, I want 5 times pay. This is crazy.
Even then, I would be very hesitant to do it.
They were made of glass in the 1960s, if I'm not incorrect. Doomcock, when he was speaking about them, called them, quote, an absolute and total nightmare, and was like, he went back to that one a couple of times about how much he just couldn't believe that they would do this. And to be fair, I think it's Justman who designed them. When he tested them, he told G, these are painful. And he's like, great, give them to Gary and tell him to put them in his freaking eye. And they're leading with a good casting choice with Gary Mitchell. He goes on to have a pretty long career and be in TV and movies. This guy obviously is the unfortunate astronaut in 2001, Gary Lockwood, and he's in Unification, which bonds this beginning tale of Star Trek to the final tale of what we think is canonical Star Trek, at least if you ask me. So I think it's cool that we worked him into Unification, but we'll keep this to where no man has gone before. Gary wakes up and his eyes are glowing and it's pretty weird. And I would just say, hey guys, we never saw debris and broken glass all over the floor like this before, although I don't know if we ever look at the floor like this again. It's a weird directing move. Even when McCoy is down and out on the floor, we don't take this angle in City on the Edge of Forever. This is a very strange Star Trek angle for the bridge.
Well, it's just like the bridge entry shot. This director was a little bit ahead of their time,
and he doesn't have the full set yet, right? Between in the 10 months they build the turbo shaft.
Yeah,
like we want the turbo lift in every episode. We've got to build a more convincing set. Sliding out of the hallway worked once.
Too, yeah.
We could get away with what we did once. Let's not do that again. And then the next time we see the turbo lift, they've got handles and stuff. The turbo lift actually gets less functional. It works on your mind or something. Like they don't press any buttons. It just takes them right to where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So Gary's messed up. They can tell right away. And we have casualties and fatalities all over the ship. Captain Kirk loses a bunch of people in the first 3 minutes of this episode. And his friend here is messed up. He is able to shake that off and be very military and very professional. I thought that was establishing a tone early on for the show and saying a lot about Captain Kirk. Anyone want to chime in on the military nature of how we do this?
That is absolute awesome leadership. A thing like this should be mentioned in a management class in college. Like this is how you lead.
Lesson.
Yeah. This is how you lead.
Let everyone do their job. You stay out of the doctor's way. You walk over to the place that you're of the most value. And he's talking to his science officer, who's his first in command. He's like, what's going on? What can we fix?
Yeah.
What's offline? When can it be back? What's our solutions? Tell me some options. And just finding out that it's the fatalities, and he's compartmentalized that to a degree, and he's trying to do what he has to do. And Captain Kirk does an excellent job. We have to take Gary down to sick bay, and he's there long enough to start acting weird. and creepy and start losing our, like, first of all, he's sort of just got his back to us when he enters the show. And like, he sits down on the bridge, and as they hit the energy barrier, he's holding hands with the captain's yeoman. And it's obvious that Kirk is sort of ignoring some kind of dating relationship because she's like magnetized to Gary.
Well, as I said earlier, it's Tuesday, so it's Gary's turn.
There seems to be some sort of hippie free love thing that Gene would have loved to have going on, like in Star Trek or something. Like, they're not pushing it, but like that seems to be the default of their society. Is that everybody's kind of getting with everyone else if they want to, and it's like all no strings. But look, we got an awesome flat screen TV. As I just say really quickly, you know what? I wouldn't care if my crew wanted to hold hands facing death if they thought that was the end. But one of them is the navigator, so I would have been like, Mr. Mitchell, while the ship is almost being destroyed, could you please keep both of your hands on the controls? So the slight lapse in the military discipline on the bridge there.
Well,
we never see Kirk allow that again. He yells at people for messing around the bridge after this.
Admiral, there are certain things men must do to remain men. Your rules will take that away from them.
She uses her hands to do that in that situation.
Admiral Teag, incoming super chat.
Radioactive, sir, my friend with a generous $2 Greenlandian greenback super chat says TOS clips were used at Squadron Officer School. Wow.
Oh,
that makes perfect sense. Like, it's super popular. It's really smart. The smartest kids are the ones who are going to end up in officer school in any service, especially the Air Force, where it has that aesthetic, and they're going for like a space thing. It's like the natural continuation of an Air Force and NASA. And that makes sense. And there was a book in the 90s called Leadership Lessons from Star Trek.
really?
But it was, most of them were from TNG, though. Like, I remember chapter 1 was the Darmok episode.
There were some good things in TNG, good leadership examples, but TOS has a lot of good ones. A lot.
Admiral Teag, incoming super chat.
Thank you, Resolute Germ. I appreciate it, sir. Very much appreciated.
What is it of? I don't have the window up here.
It is of a very
a money and
cute, smiley, googly-eyed, funny face with dollar signs in its eyes. And I
Greenlandian dollar signs by the look of it.
Darn straight.
Exactly.
And you know what? Thank you, Germ. While I'm looking over here, let's take a look at your votes. 21 of you have voted so far. Keep on voting. Keep them coming in. Vote early, vote often. Why do you think the network and Gene was not opposed to passing on this as the first episode either, passed on the pilot as first broadcast episode? Not enough action, say 19% of you. Too cerebral, say 14% of you. Man Trap is just a better story, 19% of you. It's moving and fluctuating as we speak, and people are trying to make up their minds. We'll figure it out before the end of the show. And you notice, see how I stayed in method there? I moved my head back, even though it's not my glasses. I'm just trying to be a real snob like Gary. Gary Lockwood has said that he had to lean his head back really far to see through the contact lenses.
Sally Kellerman has said the same thing. Yeah, Sally Kellerman said the same.
She did a much more effective job at arguing that she shouldn't have to wear them because she only wears them for like 2 scenes. He wears them for most of this episode.
Yeah.
We only see him without him for maybe 2 or 3 minutes of this runtime. All right, so Gary Mitchell is already being weird, and he makes a statement to Kirk here that I found to be extremely, just sort of funny and out of touch. He says to him, I had a chance to catch up on some of your long hair stuff. So that's a 1940s term for old masters of painting and philosophy. So, to bring everyone up to speed, in the teaser, we had the 3-dimensional chess. Kelso told them about the black box from the Valiant. They beamed it on board the Enterprise. We saw our transporter. It's no big deal. Scotty's the guy who beams it aboard, so we see him. He's also there with the department heads, and he has the reassuring line. He's the first one to speak. Engineering is ready as always, Captain. And Kirk just nods it, and they have natural chemistry right away, even though the two of them in real life didn't get along. They're such good actors, you'd never know. It seems very warm between Captain Kirk and Scotty at all times. They really were professional about it. When Scotty attempts to access the tapes in that black box they found, it emits a warning signal, and Kirk ordered the red alert. They're going to follow it. And in that, Spock and Kirk now have to figure out what's going on in the aftermath of encountering the energy barrier. Spock's deciphered most of the energy barrier tapes before they go in there, saying there's some strange ESP stuff going on with the crew, and that the captain ordered the ship to be self-destructed. So we have an Event Horizon sort of situation having happened on the other ship.
Mm-hmm.
And we are 2 for 2 in destroying other ships in Star Trek episodes so far. Don't be the other ship in an episode, or at least don't be on it. If you're another ship in the episode, go to the shuttle bay and try to make your way towards the Enterprise, because that ship is getting destroyed before the end of the episode.
Yeah.
With the ship battered by the barrier, 9 crew members die. Main systems, including the warp drive, are heavily damaged, and Mitchell and Dehner are struck with energy discharges visibly. Mitchell awakens with glowing eyes. All right, she doesn't have them yet. The Enterprise is limited to impulse power. The bases are now years away. Kirk and Spock note that both Mitchell and Dehner had high ESP ratings, as did all the crew members who died. Now, again, we are glad we left this with the aliens. And in sickbay, Mitchell's abilities are rapidly growing. He has enhanced memory and intelligence, as he tells Kirk. He's reading at superhuman speed, including complex works like Spinoza and control of bodily functions, telepathy, and telekinesis. He doesn't pull any of the telekinesis or magical stuff yet in front of Kirk, but he is reading at like God mode. It's like click, 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 click. And also, he's smarter than the person that Kirk graduated from the academy. He was smart, but there was certain stuff that Kirk understood that Mitchell didn't. And it's so strange. Mitchell talks about the academy in a way that would make Kirk, if he's 35 in season 2, 19 as a lieutenant at the academy and teaching. This is a mistake that can't be reconciled. It's just a mistake. I'm going to say they're rounding. I'm going to say they're rounding. It's like 13 years. But go ahead,
Maybe
tell me your
a
theory.
little bit, but straight out of the academy, he may have just got an associate professorship. He wasn't really teaching anything important. He is just filling space.
Well, TAs often teach courses too. Sometimes if they know the material, they just give it.
I'm more with Sean on that one. I had a couple of classes that were taught by TAs, or at least workshops and labs from other classes. So it made sense. Lieutenant Kirk would seem to be his Lieutenant Cadet Kirk, which would square up all the canonical problems with his age. And they say that he was a stack of books with legs, walking around, the most well-read person. And I thought that was an interesting observation on Kirk, that he's both a soldier and a scholar, much like we see Patton, putting down, like he's reading the Bible all the time. He's reading books all the time. So, Kirk, he's an old soul, and he's reading old masters and gaining insight from them, even in the 23rd century and beyond, and being 24th century and being a genius in his time. So Mitchell's got Spock worried right away, and Dehner is going to go speak to him later, and that's when he's going to show telekinesis. He's going to start messing with the monitor. Then he's going to turn his heart on and off for a minute just to show her how messed up he is. And the parallel development is Kirk and Spock are on the bridge sort of sleuthing through everyone's medical records and noticing the high ESP stuff. Spock connects it to the other ship, and he's right away like, we got to just kill Mitchell, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
sir, we need to delete Mitchell right away. Like Spock
That came
is
pretty
like going for
early,
it.
didn't it? That really came right away. Like Spock gamed this out in his head. He's like, the way this is going, and this is what 15
We have to
minutes
go
into
for
the
two,
episode
sir.
at
That
most.
field goal's not going to work, sir.
Yeah. He's just like, sir, I've looked at this and I've calculated it out. And in approximately 4.23 days, if we don't get rid of him, he'll get rid of us. And I was shocked at how quick that is. Normally, when a story like this is written, that realization comes in after halfway through.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
just like with Charlie X, like he wanted to delete Charlie too. It's 2 weeks in a row. Spock's
we have two
He's a
godlike beings
Mabenga.
in a row.
He
is kind of a Mabanga, isn't he?
Well, we
But he
don't
would
have
never be
McCoy,
so careless with the transporter as a Mabanga.
True.
That is true. He wouldn't store people in the transporter for years on end. All right, so Spock is just like space John McClane. He's like, sir, take my shoes, give me a gun, I'll take care of Mitchell right now. Give me a phaser, and I'll just go in there and take him out right now. And notably, it's pretty early in the episode that Spock says this. Yeah, like Spock, like he's real logical. And he makes some mention of how their Earth emotions are strange to him, and that one of his ancestors is human. So, I have a theory about some of these things that have been withheld from Kirk or that they haven't developed yet. I'm going to say that Kirk isn't pushing it, and Spock hasn't told him how human he is yet.
Well, wouldn't Kirk know from his file though? I don't think we can explain that one away.
I think Kirk is
No,
not
you can't.
pushing it.
What do you say,
I
Jerm?
think that
We can't explain that away. That's just a solid continuity error. Kirk would know exactly who his parents are from reading his file. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we just gotta bite this one, guys.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
continuity error. Also, like dangerous. We're skating dangerously close to the edge with a couple of things here. We have a continuity error almost happening with Kirk's age, where you have to think for them, so you're doing a little bit of work, and then just an outright continuity error that can't be squared up. They say they've also broken their space warp factor, so they've gotten away from time warp factor. We've broken our space warp drive. We say it just once, then we call it warp drive later. This is super creepy with Dehner. It's just like, hey, he's already called her a walking freezer unit and shown that he's got something going on with the chick on the bridge, that Kirk can't even remember his own yeoman's name. He calls her Smith, her name is Jones or whatever. And I might have reversed it, but that's how not focused on women and focused on work Kirk is at this point in his life. He's not the guy who's not going to show up and see his kid to advance his career that we saw Thursday. And so Gary's just a creepier. He's creepy to Hot Lips from MASH, which shows that our casting department is working overtime and doing great. And we had a great and futuristic looking sickbay. The sickbay looks fantastic. And after he talks to Elizabeth, at the same time, Spock and Kirk come to the conclusion that the Valiant was destroyed by its captain because of this ESP. And the ESP is now starting to show up in Mitchell. And they're watching him on the monitor, and like at one point, and Spock's like, he's reading even faster than he was just moments ago. Spock is not liking this. And like Sean said, he is crunching the numbers in his head. And he's like you said, he's like 4.2 days, maybe 2.7 days. I'm still working
Yep.
on the outside, sir. We'll see if he can move that coffee cup across the room, sir. But Gary is getting creepy and arrogant right away. And we end up in a conference where he has one of the things that Gary does is before he decides he's going to wipe everyone out, Kelso walks in to see him on his coffee break. And we find out Mr. Kelso did not do a good job on his watch and his damage control inspection. And he missed something. Gary reads his mind and he's like, you better go check out the impulse drive points on the pistons, on the injector pistons. They're about burned down the lead. And he's like, yeah, sure, Gary. And he's like, don't be an idiot. Go do what I say. And he's like, whoa, all right. And he's like, Captain, I don't understand it. And he's like, whoa. So right now, until they stop talking about it forever, ESP is kind of common in their world. It comes bundled with most packages. People get it for free when you buy a new communicator for like 3 months. It's like Disney Plus. You can't get rid of it. No
ESP
matter what,
Plus
you live a normal life.
for $12 a month. Yeah.
It's even with the Ocho. But I do love this view of the conference table. This director was pretty good, but he hated Star Trek. I love this view of the conference room. We haven't built the monitor yet, is really what it is. The wall, I think that's going to end up becoming part of Baylock's ship. Call me crazy. The conference table, they're going to did they change that one to black? And it doesn't seem to have the the TV monitor on it.
Yeah, that's just some wooden table they brought in from somewhere.
I'm going to just go and say one thing. The only thing I disagree with slightly, it's not a strong disagree. The table either goes silver or black after this. I think the wooden table made it more grounded and made it seem like more like a workplace, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The ship's going to take on a unified design aesthetic, and they're going to throw themselves into it, and the overall effect's going to be better than any one thing. People still have personal effects in their cabins and things like that. But we have found out that Mitchell can read minds, and Spock now just doubles down. Yep, we got to delete this guy. He's a POS anyway, Jim. And Kirk is going to go try to talk to Mitchell, who's really up-powered now. And this is, by the way, Sulu here is giving his report. I forget exactly what Sulu had to contribute to this one, but really the main person giving a report at the staff meeting
is growing geometrically. He's essentially reiterating what Spock was saying earlier.
I guess that's a life sciences gig. Yes, Mr. Spock is correct. Life sciences concurs is basically Sulu's role here. It's not his line, but that's basically his role.
Essentially.
And the doctor seems to be wearing a command badge here, a logo on his badge. HD has been really unkind to them, and I just can't tell. Scotty might have command. Everyone simply may have command in this. It looks like only Sulu's badge might be different, but we're not going to stare at these roll neck sweaters much longer. But the most notable thing here is the lived-in aspect of the ship, in the sense of these data tapes, which we don't really have a strong reference for what they are unless you work in a technical field at this point. They make sense in world and they stay true to what they are. And we figure, it'll make sense if you keep watching Star Trek. They're like strewn all over the place, like they're working like crazy. I did like that. The sort of like disheveled workplace. So it's
there is Mr. Scott.
I'm going to bring it back for a moment and they'll show us Mr. Scott. The conference ends and Kirk talks to Mitchell one-on-one. When Kirk talks to Mitchell, Mitchell makes it clear that he orchestrated a romance in Kirk's past. Many people have extrapolated it to be Carol Marcus. She's blonde and she fits the time frame, but it's really creepy. And the amount of ESP he shows Kirk here really starts to convince Kirk that he's not going to retain his humanity. And that's sort of the biggest piece of this episode is, will these people maintain their humanity or not?
Tough to say when you have a sleeveless shirt like that. I mean, haven't you already lost your humanity already?
It's a good thing Gary didn't have any tattoos, right? I don't understand. I guess they're sickbay pajamas. They make enough sense to me in that sense. And Piper, he has like a weird hybrid going on. He's got his regular crewman's shirt on, and he's got like the McCoy Lab short sleeve shirt on over it later in this episode. But Mitchell is arrogant to everyone, including Kirk. The conference determines that there's nothing they can do. They basically go after him. They manage to trank him up and drag him to the transporter room before he gets super powered, because we have to go to Delta Vega anyway. And in the time that it takes to fix the ship, maybe, just maybe, he won't power up fast enough to tear the ship out of orbit or something else crazy like that, because he is getting telekinesis and telepathy and every other telemarketing, every skill you can imagine. So we beam him down to Delta Vega. We immediately confine him, and he is in basically what's going to turn into a brig. And there's Spock's gun belt right there. It is just a 20th century U.S. military web belt. Anyone want to help me with that? So say we all.
Yeah, so say we.
Yeah.
Guys, if you have some memberships, this would be a good time to spam some emojis. Keeping the chat sort of fresh. It's a good thing to do. And the Admiral will be grateful to you. Thank you, Trek Reviewer. The guard we see is Lieutenant Leslie. Thank you.
Anyone else wonder why they have a detention area in a fully automated facility?
I think they mocked it up.
Okay.
I think they threw a bed in there and then they put the security screens on the wall because I think they're able to deploy these. We've seen that they're slightly mobile. We were able to trick someone into walking into a room and turning those on in Charlie X, right? So you can just like take a pair of security. These are like they're like the spike strips that the cops have to stop like high-speed car chases. Like you can deploy them pretty fast. Like get those rapid deployment security screens up and have a level 4 force field to keep Mitchell in that room. To which I'm saying, all right, he's contained in that room, but like, why isn't he throwing stuff at them? Like he's not that smart yet. He doesn't figure out how to use his telekinesis the way Vader uses it on Luke in Empire Strikes Back for a little while. But I guess he's still trying to use his charm. I don't know. He's not powerful enough to get back to the ship. I don't know if he's toying with them yet or if he's still pretty dumb. He ends up getting angry and throwing himself at the force field, which causes his eyes to briefly change back. And that like evokes a moment of compassion from Kirk. And of course, Elizabeth is there because she studies like psychology. Here's Gary getting angry and bullying into the force field like the douchebag he is. And here's Spock ready to water that lawn. I mean, it's pretty good, but I mean, danger, Will Robinson. Am I not correct?
Yeah. They do look cool, though. I'd like to have one of those.
You know what? It was a lot cooler as Crater's weapon. The episode we saw first when it was redistributed
like a
to
civilian
civilians,
version.
or something that someone like maybe modded themselves just a little bit, right? Like no company would make something so ungainly like Spock made. Like the headcanon, the in-world explanation to get out of this one is okay. The rifle's a bad idea. But I'm going to say this again, and if anyone wants to fight me on this, you got to do it right now. There is no case for a phaser rifle in any kind of Star Trek world. Just dual wield 2 phaser pistols.
Rifle is I'll contest you on that. It is important if you're going to be sniping. You do need a longer thing with a scope and something you can steady and take your time and zoom in. You can't do that with a pistol. Long range
beams down really close to the person and phase them though.
Well, yeah, but like even with the O'Brien when he fought the Cardassians, there's a standoff. You're taking shots at people across town.
Fair enough. You need a rifle for stability.
For
That's Sean. You solve the problem. So here's my in-world for this. You ready? Spock has bought his father's phaser or his grandfather's phaser. His human grandfather's phaser. His human grandfather was a bit of a space patent who had an eccentric weapon that you shouldn't have, and it was old even in its time. And Spock has like an old-fashioned ray gun. He's like, no, the phaser would be too advanced. I need a primitive weapon that he can't mess up with his mind. Besides, it's more painful, and I don't like Mitchell anymore.
Is that phaser pearl handled?
It's all chrome, but it does reflect the light and look like it's pearl handled. It might say New York Jets on it. I don't know. Spock is just going for all sorts of nostalgia here. He's got his roll-neck sweater on, like one of the Rolling Stones from their first album. He's got Gary, in a cage. He's got pointing a garden hose at him. But Mitchell bowls into the force field here, and he looks like he's human for a couple of seconds. His eyes go back, and Kirk's like, Gary, and he's having second thoughts. It's really bothering him, but he knows that he knows it happened to the other ship, and he leaves Elizabeth to talk to him. He's why not? He's going to be alone here forever. We'll just wait 200 years before we send another ore ship. We'll find a new dilithium cracking station. This guy's crazy. And they're stripping out this station in a way that looks convincing for people who are hard up for equipment. Because we saw Uhura's station explode. Uhura's not there. There's no one there. We see a couple of unmanned stations on the bridge that are exploding pretty good. We never see anything burst into little campfires again.
She would have caught fire like Michael Jackson.
Sig Balderson says, I like the phaser rifle in TOS. I wish they used it beyond this one episode. Our next time that we really see them might be Deep Space Nine.
Mm,
The next practical use of the phaser rifle is to beat down a Borg in Star Trek First Contact. It makes a good club. Go ahead, Jerb.
We get a couple of them scattered throughout TNG, but not widely used. We use them damn near every week on DS9, especially with the Dominion War.
I'm consulting the Intertron.
Their rifles make sense
Season
the way
4,
that they were
Mind's
speculated
Eye.
on.
This
We don't
season
see
4,
this particular phaser rifle again. But
oh wait, yeah,
might
season
be
4, the Mind's Eye, when LaForge is testing that shuttle. He has no wait, was it that? They have a
We'll work
rifle
on that one.
in the ensign the lower decks episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
In
Sorry.
PNG, you see one. Sigvaldason has answered it for us.
Yeah.
If
I've seen it a
anyone
couple
knows the
times.
episode, let us know. We do see phaser rifles in TNG. I had forgotten. Like, if we see them 4 or 5 times. They're not common, and I think if we see them, we might see them in high security situations and dangerous situations. But I would just say they look and work exactly like they're speculated to by our panel. That it's a phaser, like they usually use, in a stabilizer with what appears to be a logical extra power cell. So at least the way they design them does make sense. You've got your reserve power pack with you, and you've got a stabilizer. And like, I want to know, sirs, if I'm in the Federation,
if he really loves
military,
you.
yeah, this question goes, yes. Well, I mean, that's a difference. I have to know whether or not I should spit or swallow. You know what, JT, sir,
What?
do you think that someone in this military would be able to put a bayonet on their phaser rifle? That's the question.
No.
I would still do it.
The Klingons.
I would still, and the Klingons would, and the Cylons do it. The Cylons put bayonets on their phasers or whatever, or their weird blasters.
I don't really see a point to that because you're never going to get close enough to actually do it.
Fair enough.
But for no other reason than the impossible to stitch up wound you would get from a bayonet is just the thing that the founding fathers intended. So
I would just say this,
what?
Honestly,
why not?
If we put a silencer on that phaser and then put a bayonet on it, it would have solved most of the problems that Picard was having as far as stealth and the adjustment of the Borg to the shields in the phaser rifles with a bayonet. Because we beat down a couple of Borg with the phaser rifle, but if those things had a bayonet on them, I mean, Worf takes out like much more of them much quicker, no problem, lickety split. So we've got that going on. Guys, we're glad you're all here. If you haven't hit the like and follow, please do it for me. It's great to see everybody as we roll into August, and we are like in the heart of the original series here.
And Sig does have the episode, Mind's Eye, season 4, episode 24, production 198, original debut of the TNG phaser rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I confirm. I've found the same information. The only other time I saw it was Lower Decks, not the cartoon, but the episode Lower Decks.
Oh, okay,
right.
The real one.
I was wondering about that one.
Used.
When you said Lower Decks, my mind went to the cartoon, and I thought that would be the return of the original one, which they probably have done, by the way. Germ, sorry.
They do use it a couple other times. The most notable is when the Romulans are pawning off fake Federation phaser rifles to Klingon rebels. Geordi and Data do a lot of testing with it in engineering. They don't actually use it in combat.
All right. By the way, returning to our story, Mitchell, before he attempts to break free, he mentions saving Kirk's life on some place called Dimmerus and declares that a race of Espers like himself would endanger humanity. And that's before when he throws himself at the force field. And he's still not strong enough to break through. Spock is obviously counting every second that Gary is in contact with this force field. He's like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Okay, sir, we have 3 hours, whatever it is before
Sir.
it falls down.
Sir.
He's like, sir, he
Sir.
didn't go McConnell like, yes, sir.
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 So, Gary goes all McConnell like after he throws himself into the energy field. And
I don't see the turtle shell. What are you talking about?
I mean, he's turtle shell shocked, and you know what? He's turtle waxed out of it.
I didn't see any white powder in that room either. So I don't know what you mean by McConnelling.
Is he in heaven or is he in hell? That damned elusive Mitch McConnell. If you've seen that weird old black and white movie, you know what I mean. All right. So, the only thing that we really find out here is there's structural change in the way Gary's thinking. He wants a race of supremists, and he wants to have a planet. This is Khan-like stuff, by the way, and I kind of like it. And I dig the lithium cracking station. You know what? Kirk is going to do far more than, kill him. He's going to hurt him, leaving him here stranded and buried alive for all intents and purposes. Buried alive. Yeah. And Kirk is hesitating because any person would, and he's known Gary for forever. Left alone with Gary, Elizabeth's ESP powers start to come out, and she's able to breach the force field, and they look in the mirror together, and she's got the glowy eyes, and they just split because they simply can. And because Kirk hasn't left a bunch of people with I would rig this building. They have rigged the building to blow, and they have someone there. So I guess whatever. But let me go to my notes and see if I have that in there.
One thing you did skip over was Lieutenant Lee, or whatever his name was. Kelso. He unfortunately gets choked out. Long distance.
That's right. I thought that happened afterwards.
Oh no, he did that when they were talking.
How can he slides down on the other side of the council so Elizabeth could conceivably walk out without seeing it? Because that would seem to be kind of time to talk about our relationship. You just red rum somebody 2 minutes after I flipped into a vampire. By the way, we have overlapping Gene Roddenberry fascinations here, right? One person sort of helping another person over the line into being a vampire sort of thing. And now they're these energy creatures who are enhanced. So the godlike being thing and a little bit of the vampire creating another vampire overlapping there just at the edges. These things that Gene loves so much. So he does manage to get out by strangling Kelso. They have hooked it up to take out the station in a reaction that would take out a big chunk of the area they're in. It's definitive, and they're refitting the ship. The ship's becoming more functional. We hear the power. We hear the ship powering up. The regular sounds that we are used to hearing on the ship are there. And when they get back down there, it's the doctor that informs them that, they did this to Spock, and, they took out Kelso. He's done, and they left. So I don't know if Elizabeth could be unaware of what Gary does to Spock, because Gary also, little side feature to his changing into a godlike creature is every once in a while he can pull the Emperor on you and hit you up with some lightning. And I don't know what the original effect was, but the effect now is lightning-like. Was it anything more than a flash? What would happen originally when Gary would deploy his biological weapon? Gary was naturally able to sort of shock you. The sound effect's the same. It's electrical shocking sounds.
Yeah, it looked a little bit like a lightning, not full-on Palpatine lightning, but...
And they never go for that. They don't have him shooting lightning.
Yeah,
He's able to just have the lightning Yeah. He's able to have like a ball of lightning manifest itself at its target. He doesn't have to shoot like a ray of lightning from the tips of his fingers. He just sort of looks at you. So he's done that to a couple of people a couple of times, including Kirk, which is part of why they've taken on this terrible course of action that none of them really want to do. And I'm guessing that Kirk is telling himself that some researcher one day will figure out how to fix Gary, and we'll go back for him. Like we'll leave him here and he can have a tantrum on this planet and knock down mountains and pull the moon down on himself if he wants. And if he does that, that's on him. But we're not going to kill him. We're establishing that we have some morality, and we're operating now at like a higher storytelling level than Lost in Space. And I don't know if any sci-fi really, like, we're boldly going where I don't know how many shows or movies have touched this level of sophistication before. Certainly there's one or two very serious sci-fi movies that precede this, but we're talking a handful: War of the Worlds, Forbidden Planet, this Starship Earth, all of those are pretty good, but it's the minority of them. So we're rolling out a concept that's like operating at a much higher level than we're used to seeing our sci-fi. When we see Gary again, he's got the graying hair, and he's creating an oasis for them to drink out of. There's our pal Scotty. We'll see him more later. He doesn't have a big role in this episode. When Kirk shows up, he gets the phaser rifle that Spock ordered earlier. This, again, was not built by the Star Trek people. It wasn't their prop. It doesn't match their design language, and we'll talk more about it when we see it in a moment. But they create this oasis. Not too bad for a B screen and a matte painting and some paper mache rocks. This is good enough for me. This story is progressing at a good pace, especially with the re-edit down from the extra time they had in there. Everything on this planet is weird and different looking enough, yet I understand that a plant is still a plant. They haven't gone completely out of their minds. And if you really want to be honest, this is as convincing a planet as we saw on Strange New Worlds Episode 1. They had greater depth of field in some shots more often. That's all. Star Trek has come full circle. For a while, in shows like Enterprise, we could have some fairly realistic or more realistic planets. Not hyper-realistic, but better than we had before, occasionally going to places with two suns or, seeing weird, weird stuff in the sky. On this one, we make a planet that at least it's alien enough and it makes sense. It's pretty cool. Guys, let's talk about Gary's godlike powers and this oasis he creates and how the Star Trek design team is doing such a great job as we close in on our confrontation between Captain Kirk and his friend, Gary Mitchell. Why don't we start with Kirk?
Let someone else start.
Okay, no problem. By the way, your mic sounds a lot better like that.
I really liked the way that they did it, and I liked that they didn't do that cheesy spring sound, like the boing sound that they do quite often. I'm glad that he just kind of said, "Oh, you mean like this?" And I could have sworn he snapped his finger. He didn't, but at this point, this episode, and I don't want to call it proto-Q because this predates the Q by 2 decades. But it feels very much in that same type of an idea of what Gene reimagining this is as the Q many decades later. And the power seems natural and believable, even though this is a supernatural ability, obviously. But I love the symbolism on it, where it's a green, lush environment from nothing. He's trying to say he can create the Garden of Eden because he is so powerful. And they did it just well enough that it all made sense. You weren't like rolling your eyes. It wasn't, I mean, these are all fake plants, but it didn't look super fake and awful.
Wait, what? Yeah, Sean.
A couple of them might have been real.
A couple of them, okay, yeah. A couple of them might have been real. I also like that they kind of had the forbidden fruit in this scene as well. And so this really speaks to anyone who's ever read about the Garden of Eden in or a similar experience in maybe other religions, but you've got the Judean Christian background that would totally pick up on this. And you don't need to talk about that for 5 minutes for it to make sense. You don't need to do it with a heavy hand. You just make it. Everybody picks up on it because everybody already knows about the Garden of Eden and what this all represents. So I love that they did it in that layer because you don't have to waste time explaining it to a bunch of idiots.
I don't remember
the audience is mature.
Yeah. I don't remember there being space wind on this planet, and good point. But it does have music playing almost the whole time we're on this planet. And it's not totally there yet, but it's recognizable as our Star Trek music, and a lot of the familiar beats are there. They're not all there, and there's some stuff we're not going to go back to using again. But yeah, Gary, when they look in the mirror together, you're already starting to think Adam and Eve. And this point really nails it home that they might, if left on this planet, this is a space seed-like idea. I thought one of the other things that went through my mind when I saw their little area that he created was Genesis Cave. Anybody? Right? Like when Nicholas Meyer watched every episode of Star Trek, maybe he was thinking Genesis Cave when he saw that. He's like, okay, that's a very Star Trek kind of thing. I could do it again. All right. Here we are showcasing the phaser rifle. This iteration does look cool. It is fun. It's good that we don't bring it back because, one, the end of it with the emitter, that like radar dish style emitter, it just looks too original sci-fi, old school sci-fi. It looks very Lost in Space. This is a prop from Lost in Space. It's not that it isn't cool. It's that it doesn't look very Star Trek really at all. I really want everyone's thoughts on the phaser rifle because this is most well known because this was on the lunchbox.
Sorry, what was on the lunchbox? This image?
The phaser rifle. No, I showed it earlier. It was in the montage. It's Kirk holding it at like a 45-degree angle.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
But they showed
that lunchbox was a metal lunchbox, right? Like the old style.
I think it was a lead lunchbox lined with liquid mercury to make sure it kept the kids' food.
Well, no,
cool.
it probably had asbestos in it to keep everything nice and insulated.
Inside the thermos for sure.
Yeah.
No shit. The thermoses used to have glass in them. When I was a kid, my thermos broke and I swallowed just a little bit of glass.
Really? Oh.
Got me sent home from school. Yeah.
Well, hey, I mean, is that any better than my era of lunchbox, which was plastic everything? So you're just getting little bits of plastic in you every time you bring your lunch to school?
What can I tell you? I thought it was ice. Obviously, I survived. Why my parents didn't sue the thermos company? I wouldn't have to work right now. But okay, moving on. It's like, Mom, next time you want to bring up paying for braces, you had like the lawsuit of the century handed to you like several times, but that time especially, like my kid drank glass. Whoa, bad. All right. Kirk's phaser rifle, pretty cool, but not very Star Trek. Anyone else have any thoughts on this, or we're just going to write it off as it's not very Star Trek? Anyone want to make a case that it was Star Trek-ish?
I liked it. I thought it was Star Trek-ish. The angles on the grip in the top of the rifle and everything feel like it shares the design language of the bridge on the Enterprise.
That's okay. You would assume that phaser Spock has, this is the upgrade.
Yeah.
Spock's personal phaser, this does look more related to. I can buy that. It's a lot more like it. Although this, like I said, was independently made by someone else. They were going to try to sell it to anyone, including it could have been to a Godzilla movie. And hey, I see something
Admiral
on the long-range
Teag,
sensors.
incoming super
Good
chat.
job, Mr. Carter. In epic Trek battles of history, Trelane Q defeats Gary Mitchell. However, Gary's powers were growing exponentially at the end of the episode. Oh, wow. Is that
Trelane was not a Q.
he isn't a book. I think there's one book where the Q.
Yeah, but the books are not
the Q hates him,
canon.
right?
The books are not. It's like if you
in
consider
the book
B
he's not a
canon
Q.
stuff,
In the book he's not a Q either.
And Gary's
When he grows to
powers
his full form,
grow.
he's some other I'm sorry, just real quick on Trelane.
Mhm.
The book I saw, when he reaches maturity, he has powers that are no longer dependent on technology, and he's like a Q-like being, but not a Q. And he's chosen to pest. Becomes like the Q's Mr. Mixelplex and just pesters and annoys him in the book I remember.
well, the two things why he's not a Q is in the Squire of Gothos, he needs a machine to use his powers. Qs do not. And he didn't understand why the humans had traveled so far to meet him. He thought they were still on sailing ships. And I think Spock pointed out that the amount of time it would have taken the light from Earth to reach him. So
That's the
Q's,
same
a
thing that
Q
they
would
say in
have,
Plato's stepchildren and a couple of other planets have the
Yeah.
same problem that they
So
only
a
are viewing it through
Q-
telescopes.
yeah. So a Q would not be inhibited by those things.
Correct.
So,
Well,
Also-
I would argue back for a moment. In Voyager, which is canonical, unfortunately, sometimes it's great. Let's face it, like we all love 7 of 9 for 2 outstanding reasons. But in Voyager, we see the Q and Susie Plaxton, and they waste an opportunity to show off her figure by putting her in antebellum clothing or Civil War clothing. And during the Q Civil War, the Q has a son. Made me so angry that I just punched my microphone.
well, you remember when Q gets Janeway to try to train him, and he doesn't need a machine to use his powers.
Sean's correct on this one.
Could it be
And-
that when the Q has a child, we have a child that is only about as capable as Trelane for a while?
No.
Okay.
No, but I do like that.
Probably
Trip
not.
Reviewer says that Strange New Worlds Q is his dad. Well, there we go.
Also,
Don't like Strange New
Gary Mitchell's power, as stated by Sulu, actually grows geometrically, not exponentially.
Yeah, and he knows what a penny is.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I had.
I didn't like
good
that.
catch.
part, Yeah.
I did not like using that as a measurement. It's like maybe something else, but I guess they're like it has to be relatable. It's so far out. Like we have to do something relatable.
Yeah.
Later on, we say credits to Navy Beans. I don't know, like still
Well-
trying to keep it somewhat grounded. But I just want to say
Admiral
to everybody,
Sir,
as I go ahead, JT.
Lieutenant Eddington, hundreds of years later in Deep Space Nine, has a lucky loony, which is currency from up north.
That might be true.
So
I don't remember that. Okay.
coins are still a common thing that people just, I don't know, have as a knickknack.
I can see why people would hold on to them. I have a Roman coin somewhere in the house. All right, so guys, I just want to say before I move on from this slide, if she's looking at you like this, you're set. There's a reason this woman gets an early hardcore nude scene. Not hardcore
Wait,
sexual,
what?
but like that woman
What?
is in the MASH movie, and the shower she's in falls over, and like I don't think they maybe put a merkin on her, but we see like her topless, and we see like her ass, and she's pretty hot. And she's still pretty hot in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. And it's the best Robert Downey Jr. movie. Have you
There's
seen this
two.
fine
So
film?
yeah, we've got two Trek actors in Back to School.
Terry Farrell
Mhm.
and I'm glitching.
And Sally Kellerman
That's right.
or Kelly Sallerman.
Callie, my brain's glitching. That's why we have to like. I'm glad we're getting to the end of the episode because when it gets late like this. All right, so Kirk and Mitchell are squaring off, and by the way, here it is, the fight that saves the show. So the executives watch the second pilot, and they notice that Gene Roddenberry has listened to everything they said carefully. But they're still kind of bored. It's a little too long. It's sort of bloated and boring. There's too much exposition in it for them. Remember, what they saw was 10% longer if it's 5 minutes longer than this. So they were able to cut this down and still have an efficient story. It doesn't meander in this form. This fight is like, it convinced them, like they love the fight. They loved watching it. They're like, that's good stuff, man. That's just like Gunsmoke. Yeah, people can buy into that. Your wacky spaceship and everything like that. Maybe they'll get used to it. And, Gene's like, but we can't lose our time where we explain the transporter for 4 minutes. Like, yes, we can. Shut up. And like, Gene's like, all right, I'm with you. And he's like on one page with them, and they collaborate together for the cut that airs on TV. It works as well as it could possibly have worked. I don't know how they could have made it any better. This is the fist fight that saves Star Trek. It is absolutely huge. It is pivotal. They order Star Trek based on this fist fight. And it's pretty good. Although when you watch it these days, HD TV is not too kind to it. You can tell it's not Gary, but William Shatner is a decent physical actor. And I think he was, in a couple of the things I've read, had always pushed to do some of the more physical stuff himself. Because like William Shatner views himself as a Renaissance man. So like,
you also get more money.
Martial artist.
You also get more money.
Pushing for more money.
He wasn't going to let the stunt double do his shirtless scenes, and those are usually the action scenes too.
Good point. All right, William Shatner has some vanity, and knows how to live to almost 100 and counting. Long may William Shatner run, but he also knows how to extract maximum money from a day at work. Way to go, William Shatner. Dehner kicks in to help Kirk out, distracting Gary long enough for Kirk to fire the phaser rifle, bringing down some rocks on him, knocking him into the grave he dug for Kirk, and taking him out. Then he's able to talk to Elizabeth for a little while, and she sort of dies. That's it. She's been off the charger too long. She was down to 1 bar. She sent one final text message to Kirk, and she just dies. It's too bad. In her last act, she retained her humanity. Do her eyes change back for a moment before she, right? Does she have a moment when her eyes
I think they go normal before she passes away. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's not changed for as long, and her ESP level is lower than Gary's. So
it'll take her longer.
I guess we leave Gary on Delta Vega, common fate for spacemen. We're not going back towards Earth anytime soon. Although this ship now needs to go to a space dock and get repaired. And it's pretty obvious.
Is it Delta Vega?
Watching. It is Delta Vega.
Because they referenced Delta Vega is referenced in Spaceballs.
Probably as a homage. It's also Delta Vega is mentioned in New Trek. It's where Una is from. It's where Rebecca Romaine is from. If you go there, don't tell people that you figured out why people lost the election. Someone with a beer belly might beat your ass. Jerry O'Connell is going to get he gets like the Cuck of the Century award for that one. That is when he broke down and told that story, it sounded like a cry for help. You know what, bro? There are like shelters you can go to, and like, you've got means. Just go to a hotel. Just leave. Rebecca Romaine hasn't been Rebecca Romaine in a while. You can do just as well. Believe me, she would have to get me kind of drunk, and she was on my wall for years. But that was in another century, a millennium ago. Here's another thing from the cage. Look at this. Someone's all busted up. Gene Roddenberry likes the damage to show on his crew. In his pilots, he likes to have people be beat up from a mission. He likes to show that humans are fragile. And this is where Kirk is just flipped off the monitor, where he's recommended, lost in the line of duty with, commendations for bravery for both of them. And he says to Spock, that's how I want his service record to end. And Spock says, I felt for him, sir. And Kirk looks at him and goes, Mr. Spock, there may be hope for you yet. And that's sort of how we end our episode. We get a final final view of the ship pulling away into space. And I like how they've chosen to do it. They've mimicked what they were doing in the original series with the special effects in this. When we go for an effects scene, and that concludes our slideshow. When we go for an effects scene in this one, what we do is the camera, and this is the shot that we established this one in. When we show motion in space, one of the things that Star Trek likes to do, and they've done it better because they've just enhanced what they were trying to do originally. The ship slowly overtakes the camera's point of view, but the camera's moving at a good clip ahead of the ship. It's pacing the ship for a while. The stars are moving by, and the ship just slowly starts to overtake the camera. Sometimes we cut away before it gets too close, but the ship is catching up to the camera. That's a Star Trek thing, but the camera's moving at a good clip too. It's just not moving quite as fast as the ship. I thought that was a cool aesthetic choice. And if you want to talk about an episode with cool aesthetic choices in first, this one is full of them. Yeah, that's what I thought too, that the R was for Jackson, Roy, Kirk. Here's my in-world. I'll put my in-world up against Gene Roddenberry because Gene Roddenberry was known to sometimes adopt what the fans said. And he adapted what the fans said about Star Trek V. He's like, yeah, I like that better than what the writers said. So Gene Roddenberry liked the dream thing, I think. Or was he around for that one? No, it was some other fan thing. He's adopted fan theories at Star Trek conventions. There's
Roddenberry was around for 5.
Was he around for 5? That was the one then where he said, you know what? Yeah, it's just that is a shared dream. I like your theory. I like that better than what they were able to come up with. You're right. They're wrong. And I think that theory gets credence from Gene Roddenberry endorsing it. The first fan theory that's independent of Gene Roddenberry, then I guess, would be all Star Trek has to end in Star Trek Generations because they overwrote the Nexus to an impossible plot device.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be the first. But Gene did have a habit of saying he liked ideas, especially on projects that he got frozen out of or that didn't do too well, especially ones that didn't do too well.
All right. This is the point of the episode where we give our scores and we'll give some thoughts, and I'll let everyone give their thoughts and reactions. Who would like to go first? Anyone feeling a burning desire?
I'll go. I'll get mine over.
Go ahead, Sean.
So I ran this through. I'm anxious to see what you put in your scoring chart. I ran mine, and this one gets a 78 out of 100. Now that doesn't mean a low B for me. It just means that my objective score. I need to figure out a way to share this with everyone out in the chat and give them a chance to download it. It's really cool, you guys. You'd really like it. I think
that's why I have to start like a Patreon or something.
Yeah, it's proving to be a pretty good guide. So maybe one of these days we'll explain it. We'll take 20 minutes and talk about it. But I give it a 78 rather out of 100, and that is just within TOS. So because at the end, when we're all done here, I'm going to know which one I think are the actual best episodes. On a subjective scale, I give this a 9 out of 10. It has everything that you need in Star Trek. Yes, there's a few continuity errors. There's a few little things, the sets changed. I can totally forgive all that. This is really the first handful of episodes. And if we look at TOS as a whole, it got to its peak within 6 episodes of the series. It took TNG 2 seasons to get where TOS got in a handful of episodes. So
I think they had a little more time with TNG. I think what happened was like marathon filming of like 4 episodes in like 3 weeks and spending like all that time together.
But even the stories and some of the writing stuff, I'm just saying, but as far as chemistry with the characters, the actors knew who their characters were in TOS right away. We don't see almost any change after this episode. There's almost no change. The characters are set. And the anyway, so yeah, 78 out of 100. I give it a 9 as far as enjoyability and watchability, and I like it. And then I do have one thing I do want to share. You had mentioned it earlier how this, and are we going to talk about the Unification tie-in after our grades, or do you want to do that now? Or have we already?
We do it after our grades. I don't think we should get the grading part done first.
Yeah, let's get the grading part done, and then I have something cool to share.
Cool.
To piggyback on your comments.
I generously yield 10 to 15 extra minutes to the show so that we can finish this up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's talk about numbers. We got one from Sean. Did we get one from Germ?
I'd say about the same of what Sean was saying. I gave it a 79 for TOS. Overall, it's a 91. But since we're having the sliding scale, I really liked Gary Mitchell. I got the impression that they cut off a lot of stuff with him and that Yeoman. That was probably that extra 10 minutes that the suit saw that they ended up cutting out for the broadcast. That may have been nice to see. He also dropped in a lot of hints and repeatedly saying that you should probably take me out, Kirk, and then leaving himself vulnerable is a good way to see that he hadn't completely lost his humanity up until the end. Very good story, great action. The Mitchell and Kirk fighting at the end definitely is what got them the approval to go to the full series. Very good in all aspects. You can forgive all the little continuity details knowing that it was actually the pilot.
Okay, thank you. And so you've given your grade. JT, have you assigned a grade to this one?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I think this is the first full complete episode of what we would consider Star Trek. So I would give this B plus or an 88%.
All right.
I thoroughly
like
enjoyed this episode. It wasn't perfect, but I very much enjoyed this.
I like the cut of your jib on this one. Let's see if my approximation of my score matches what what I had in Sean's Matrix. But yeah, I'm going to say that this is about an 85 to a 90 episode of Star Trek if it was in school. So it's like a B plus for sure. I love this story. There's some factual problems and some continuity errors that we can't square up. They do not take you out of the story. This story was well placed as number 3 and should never have been the pilot. I don't know why they chose the Salt Vampire one. I have some theories, but I do know that they were right not to choose this one for the pilot. And you, our audience, have been considering that very question all night. So, you know what? Let's take a look for a moment as I give my grade, and I have. It's got action and adventure at the final frontier. We showed that people could be real and relatable. We showed that you could have a friendship, have a relationship. You could fall in love. You could have a fist fight. You could have rivals. You could have anger, jealousy, and rage. And you could even have, yes, the redeeming nobility of humanity and hesitation to take life, as well as the callousness that comes with complete power. We're studying the human condition, and this is what got Gene Roddenberry going. This is the kind of story that Gene Roddenberry loved to tell. It was absolutely amazing in its scope. I thought the way he examined the way the power corrupted him and the way all the acting came together, especially with the prop department, with all the things that we see with a much more functional looking Enterprise. It's going to take another jump, but a much more functioning looking Enterprise. As a viewer, I guess this show inspired fanatical viewing. So I'm going to guess that if I was a viewer by this time, having read everything I could about the show, in whatever newspaper I could get and talking to everyone about it, I would have figured out that this happened a little bit earlier. I would have been able to cobble that together in my mind. Certainly by the time we see the menagerie, you're going to be able to figure out this one happened earlier in continuity. In reruns, it was a good idea to make this third. They were smart to establish their regular aesthetic, and we don't see a lot of that weird phaser. We don't see a lot of the weird communicator. We've got here still, and we've ditched the coats, and we've gone to color coding, but not much else has changed. It's not too good. We've still got the female cast members wearing trousers. We don't have McCoy in place yet, but as JT said, it does still feel like Star Trek. Maybe McCoy's on the ship. Maybe he took a vacation after he had to kill the Salt Vampire. I don't know. But, obviously, I'm joking around here. But, yeah, this was a good episode to see. It was solid and enjoyable. It would have presented the really dedicated fan with some confusion, but by no means a deal breaker. And by the next week, we move on to a planet. And that's something that Kurtzman should realize. A 10-hour stupid bloated story never ever works out. If you can confine it to just a couple of hours and, you know, like a 1-hour episodic story, if this one doesn't work out and people don't like it, you say, you know, next week we're going to be on another planet and you won't have to worry about this ever again. So that's a strength. And we asked our audience before the show, why do you think the network and Gene passed on this pilot as first broadcast episode? Who is better, Dr. Piper or Dr. Boyce, says the Trek reviewer? Dr. Boyce has booze. I'm going to say Dr. Boyce. Dr. Piper dies of old age between episodes, and McCoy gets bumped up to like full ship surgeon. So I want to just say our audience's votes. Let's share them with all of you now so that you can see them. You guys have been voting all night. I want to thank you for keeping our Star Trek community alive with your interest and your love and power, really, as Dio would say. And we have vote now, forever hold your peace. Right now, with over 20 votes, we have 25 votes. Not enough action, 16%. Too cerebral, 16%. The Man Trap is a better Trek story. These are the reasons people think it was passed over to be the first episode shown, even though it was written to be a pilot. I want to thank everybody who voted. You're all wonderful people. And I'm going to just give my take on this one. The tie really represents how close it is. But seeing those other two episodes, we've established our world much more firmly and much more relatably with characters we're going to have going forward in stronger stories that have less science fiction and more action already. We care about this world, so we can slow down and do some science fiction-y stuff. And that's going to come back when Gene does the choice to have a more ethereal and human condition exploring episode like The Menagerie, which is, The Changeling, with the original one with I'm messing up the name. The one with the provider and the original Zephram Cochrane.
The episode name?
Yeah, I'm forgetting the episode now. I'm blanking on it.
Oh God, what am I? I'm really tired. Well, shit.
All right.
Someone in the chat will know.
Yeah, I'm trying to wait, what?
This is very Roddenberry.
I'm off guard, yeah.
You know what? This is very Roddenberry. We revisit this theme, and we have, this from time to time, we can slow down and have an episode that has pretty much no action, which in the episode with the provider and Zephram Cochrane, the cloud attacks him a couple of times and they do some physical acting, but that episode has a slower pace and it's more about exploring this symbiosis and the metamorphosis, which is the name of the episode. In Metamorphosis, we explore the human condition again in a slower way, where we have the provider and Zephram Cochrane, and we find out that we can have episodes of Star Trek where we can do this as long as we give people something to hold on to, something to sink your teeth into. For the TV executives, it was the fight. Our audience remains divided, but the winner really between the tertiary causes, the primary reason everybody seems to think by a hair, just a nose here, is The Man Trap is just a better story. I'm going to say that all three reasons are valid. And again, you guys are really,
it could have been the executives.
That poll was neck and neck.
That could have been three reasons the executives used. They could have been A, it's this, B, it's that, C, it's that. It could have been all three.
Yeah.
Dr. Piper
was it does have more continuity to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not having DeForest Kelly really sets this episode back.
I agree. Dr. Piper, my headcanon is he dies of old age right after the episode ends.
My theory was because the Man Trap looked and felt like they knew it was going to look. They had Where No Man Has Gone Before. If this was the first episode everyone saw, they would have expected to see exactly this the next week. With the Man Trap and Charlie X, we had 2 episodes where they looked like they're going to. That's my kind of theory. And this one, I think they're it was a good episode, we can't shit can it. You know, they can't reshoot it. We got to throw it in there somewhere.
It doesn't.
But this
fit
was
their
a pilot,
aesthetic,
though,
but it's a
right?
really good story. This was
This was
submitted
the
as a
second
pilot, and
Okay, yeah.
this was the second pilot. What happened was there's a February 1966 meeting with the people at Paramount, with the people at NBC, because that's who Desi Liu makes the show, and they're trying to get NBC to show it. NBC liked the first pilot, and they bring back a second pilot that is exactly what they asked for, but it's slower and more bloated than a regular episode of Star Trek, so they don't make that. And what happens is in the 10-month gap between making this and making the next episode they create, the Corbinite Maneuver, they're watching Lost in Space, and Gene Roddenberry's like, this is like a kid's sci-fi show. We have to distinguish ourselves as much as we can from this. I don't want anything like resembling the aesthetic from Lost in Space. And he's like, we're doing a moral story, a moral adventure that challenges our viewers rather than some pulpy family style stuff with the Brady Bunch in space. Like Gene Roddenberry didn't hate Lost in Space, but he was like viewed it as very dangerous to his brand, and like just like we can't like I don't want to look like it. I don't want to have any like that's not how we want our spaceship to feel. Everything needs to be more like, you know, like Robert Justman, what do I do? And he's like, sir, we've designed these more like, you know, like better props that look a little cooler and sleeker, sir. We think one day people will have devices that flip open like this to use to talk, sir. And we've developed a better weapon, sir. It no longer looks like a garden hose. It's like, all right, if we bury this in episode 3, we can get through the pilot and have an episode in the can, and people will love it. So James Goldstone, the director, directed one more original series episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? We all love that one.
That had some interesting camera angles too.
Yeah. And here's the thing. He was offered a job and he said no. And when asked why, he said, if I keep directing this, I'll have to watch it. So he hated Star Trek, and it's a good thing he left. Fuck you. You did a good job for what you did, though. I mean, you moved on to whatever you did, but you did a good job with this episode, sir. I salute the guy who directed it. So
sometimes the best director is someone who's not a fan.
I give
look at the Wrath of Khan. You know, that's a perfect example.
No.
So here's a shocker. Hold on a second, JT. This was not written by Gene. This was written by Samuel J. Peeples, who, before he would go on to open a pet shop and own McGill Gorilla, wrote the second pilot, Nowhere No Man Has Gone Before. He later wrote the premiere episode for Star Trek, the animated series, Beyond the Farthest Star. That's the only canonical one, according to Gene, from 1973. In 1981, he submitted an early story outline script draft, Worlds That Never Were, the new Star Trek. And some of it makes its way into Wrath of Khan, especially the name Savick. He gets credit for that, but no on-screen credit. They keep their relationship with him. He's probably what would get a producer credit now. So he goes on to have continuing relationship with Star Trek. And the director, they want to keep him around, but he's like, this is dumb. I want out of here. I did my best. Bye. I get why this isn't the first episode. It's not a bad story at all. In this episode, the godlike beings are us, but changed. Absolute power. The Cage and this relate to unification. Let's talk about it, Sean, as we end our poll.
Yeah. So you had brought up and hopefully everyone out there has seen Unification. If you haven't, you have to track it down and watch it and have some
Explain
tissues
Unification
ready
to our friends.
So
it's not listed on YouTube, but you can see it. It's unlisted.
You have to find it. It's tough. I have it say I have
to go to Otoy.
So
the company is called, the channel's called Otoy, Otoy.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. They're a special effects house, but it was written with real writers. It has a real director who's directed New Trek. It has a real score from the movie guy, the Kelvin guy. It's Gene Roddenberry's son approved the story, and it's pretty good. Go ahead, Sean, take it away.
So yeah, and it is made with authorization from Paramount. William Shatner is in it. He did some facial scanning, and the introductory shot, I think, where he's walking is actually Shatner. So he put on the boots and he put on the pants.
He does mocap. Also, Gary Mitchell is in this, and it is
Yeah,
Gary
so-
Mitchell. He has CGI makeup. They describe it as Gary Lockwood's still alive. He did it.
Yeah, so that's the tie-in that the Admiral's talking about. The very beginning of this, we see Gary Mitchell looking up and closing his eyes, and it's like we don't know if he's creating whatever you're going to see. We don't want to talk about Unification, the plot of it, but it begins with Gary Mitchell, and you can interpret it in many ways why he's in it and what he's doing.
I'll drop one thing about the plot. It involves Captain Kirk and his experiences after the death of Captain Kirk on
Viridian 3.
Viridian
Right?
3.
You guys,
Yes,
if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen it, go find it, you guys. It's incredible. It's about 9 minutes long. And
This
if you
is what
don't
happens
cry, you have
after
no
the
soul.
moment. Yeah, this is what happens the moment after we lose Captain Kirk in Star Trek Generations. It treats that as the
Mhm.
jumping off point.
Yeah.
But a reformed Gary Mitchell sort of makes it happen. Apparently his spirit endures.
Yeah.
His heart goes on.
Yeah. So I don't want to spoil any more of it because it's so incredible. You guys deserve to go watch it.
About
But I
10
do
minutes
wanna-
long, and there's no dialogue.
Yeah. So I also want to bring up this, and I don't know how many people out there have seen Star Trek Continues. If you haven't, start watching it, because the last episode of Star Trek Continues ends with espers. And I'm going to share a screenshot here because it's so incredibly well done. Let me add that. Oh, we got to remove. Let's remove that and add that. So look at that, you guys. This is from Star Trek Continues. This is the last episode. Look at that. Isn't that cool or no?
No, it's really cool. I was looking for some other stuff while I'm doing this, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is cool.
So the Star Trek Continues, the final, it bookends TOS in so many ways. It's such a good episode. You guys binge it. You can even watch the last episode first, but I advise you not to. Just enjoy the ride up to it. It's so good.
All right.
I really want to review these episodes with you guys one day.
Anybody here have a strong opinion about how this didn't end up being the first episode? Because I mean, I've laid most of mine out. I'm not going to relitigate it, except to say it was both too cerebral and didn't have quite enough action for an idea this cerebral to be the first one. But the fact that it got delayed was proof of concept to Gene that he could slow down and do more artful and more enjoyable episodes. So that's my final thought on what I think is a pretty good standard Star Trek episode, which is improved by the special edition because you have less questions about why the ship suddenly looks different and all this other weird stuff. All right. So anybody got a model drop in this week?
What define drop?
Anybody got a model video coming out this week, or watching, doing a watch party or anything? Anyone doing anything on their channel?
Well, no, I still have to. I finally got my Reliant in the. I ordered a new one, so I got that. I'm going to start working on the saucer section again, and I'm doing some other stuff, but nothing really else.
All right, check out my video essay of last week's New Trek episode. We'll be back for Sci-Fi CSI. And Jeremy, you got anything going on?
Yeah, we'll have the Godzilla movie on Monday. Hopefully one or two other things, but I'm not sure they'll be done this week.
All right. Well, guys, we had a pretty fulsome show on Thursday. This is where we're just going to say that we love you guys. I want to thank everyone for their support in August. In July. Next week, I'm considering ending the stream and making it into a member meeting. Just going right into it. Well, all the members, are like as many people as watch the show, will be here, right? So next week, Admiral, at least, unless something weird happens, and I can't do it, but my plan is at the end of our show next week, I will have a member stream for about an hour where I'll be here. And JT dropped out on us. Oh, I don't know if that was a loss of power or what. You didn't leave us a note, so I'm going to assume he lost internet. But just going forward, I have a video out check out my new video essay. There'll be another video essay this week, trying to get the Strange New Worlds one done for this week. And we'll be back on Thursday night with Sci-Fi CSI. I'm Admiral Teag. Thank you so much for watching, and we love you all. We'll see you this week for Thursday's live stream. And you know what? Let's see. Who shall we leave you with? I think people would be upset if I didn't give them Sydney Sweeney before when we leave. Right, Charm? I don't think that would be forgiven.
We always need
Peter
Cindy.
Bigman Fan Club. And Blue Neptune, hello to you. Hell, Blue Neptune. You know what? Let me shout out the crowd before we leave, and then we'll call a night. I want to thank everyone who came by, and that would include, woohoo, where's my little list? I want to thank Kyle, Gavin, the Trek Reviewer, Blue Neptune, Mark Harkness, Desert Coliseum. Hi, Desert Coliseum. It's good to see you again. John the Beagle Dad. Hello, sir. Dave C. Lombardi 1969. The Peter Venkman fan site, which is a great YouTube follow, a great X follow, and really good supporter of the channel and friend. Daniel. Hello, Daniel's Hot Topics 187. Crimlon, Mr. House Party 6, Buddy Hepburn, the Tetrarch of Apathy, the Dead Man, Sean Carter, JT Kirk, the Trek Reviewer, Sig Voldeson, and Radioactive, and anyone else who is lurking or comes through later. Thank you so much. We love you all. Do me a favor, hit the like and follow buttons. It still counts later on just as much. And thank you, everybody who watches during the week. We make the uploads for you. I think there might be some Enterprise stuff coming out in the future, and we're going to probably, let's see, maybe a patent one in the future, because we're approaching patent part 2 on Labor Day. You're not going to want to miss that on our next patriotic stream. This is Admiral Teag, and this is Sydney Sweeney to bid you all good night. We love you